2020. Right. So today we have three sessions, which starts with biomechanical engineering, the analysis, what Dr. Ankit Saxena will be talking for the next 1.5 hours, and followed by a break of 30 minutes. Then we will have condition monitoring of manufacturing process by Professor Andhare. And post lunch, we will be having the monitoring with MATLAB for a deburring process. So, so yesterday we had a very good sessions. I am very happy that around 80 to 85 participants are there for all the sessions. So today, let me introduce Dr. Ankit Saxena. Dr. Ankit Saxena has done his master's from IIIT Jabalpur and his PhD is from IIT Roorkee, where he has worked on the analysis of artificial hip joint for a squat posture at IIT Roorkee. And his area of interest, current area of interest is like stress analysis in biomechanics, design of prosthesis, hybrid manufacturing, ergonomics. So Dr. Ankit Saxena is very dynamic person because I know him because I was his MTech supervisor also. And immediately after MTech, he joined IIT Roorkee for his PhD. And he represented IIT Roorkee at the Rashtrapati Bhavan in the year 2016. And that's what I can say. And he also visited Japan as a part of Indo-Japan program in 2013, if I remember. Right? So I'll not take much time now, and I'll be requesting Dr. Ankit Saxena to share his views on the biomechanical aspects of the human posture. So, Ankit, the session is for you now. Okay, thank you. Ankit, are you there? Just 1 second. There could be some problem actually. Let me wait 2 minutes. He will be joining again. I am happy to share that our department faculty, Dr. Rashmi Uddanwadikar, is also today has joined because her area of research is in the biomechanics also. Good morning, madam.
The part of your team.
Oh, thank you, madam. Thank you. Ankit, are you there? We'll wait. There is some problem, it seems. Let me. Tell me, Mohinder, sorry. Let me just check with him. Okay, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Ankit, Ankit, you have to, Ankit, you have to unmute yourself. Ankit, can you hear me? Ankit,
Can you hear me, sir?
yeah, can you hear me?
Hello. Yes,
Yeah,
sir. Yes, sir. I can hear, sir.
okay, we can start.
Yes, sir. Yes. Let me share my PPT. Let me share the screens.
Not yet. It will take some time, I think. Wait some time. It will be
Okay.
coming. Yeah, now I can. Okay, again it has gone.
Is it-
Yeah, now it is visible.
Okay. Shall I start, sir?
Yeah, please start.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ankit Saxena, Assistant Professor in Mechanical Engineering Department, MITS, Madanapalli. Madanapalli is a very beautiful city in the Chittoor district of Andhra Pradesh. And this on the screen, you can see the campus of MITS Madanapalli. I have, as sir already used, that I have completed my research work in IIT Roorkee under Dr. Rahul S. Mulik. And my area of work was the human hip joint. And today I'm going to present what we have done in this area, in the area of biomechanics for routine body postures. Today, I think we will focus for the squat posture, which is very routine posture in Asian life, Asian population majorly. So this will be our content for the next few minutes. I will just give a brief introduction of the work and the trends and the objective of the study that we have done in IIT. Then the numerical methodologies. Methodologies we will discuss under 3 sections: numerical, experimental, and mathematical. And we will results that we obtained during my work, and a few of the future scopes that we can have in this particular area. So, traditional engineering approaches are being analyze the biological systems as a part of biomechanics. See, this assists to give correct approximations to the mechanics of many biological systems through the concepts of Newtonian mechanics or material sciences, etc. On the other hand, structural analysis, kinematics, and dynamics play prominent role in a study of biological systems using traditional engineering sciences. Certainly, artificial systems evolved based on the standard theories and therefore easy to analyze such systems, while the biological systems are structured through many irregularities, which are complex to analyze with the existing standard theories. Therefore, numerical methods and mathematical concepts are applied in biomechanical study. These methods are used to simulate the actual biological systems through some appropriate assumptions. The researchers have been working in this field of biomechanics to reveal the mechanical failures of the biological systems, the mobility and strength restore of a hip joint. This is always a challenge to the biomechanical engineering community. The mobility of a biological system depends on the kinematic constraints even before and after the surgery, arthroplasty. The kinematic constraints would be directly related to the type of joints and links. It is also essential to understand the joint reaction forces occurred from daily activities and the body weight as well. Thereby, the stress and deformations in the bones would also be evaluated, and the stresses and deformations would give a better understanding of mechanical behavior of biological systems. The mobility of a typical hip joint is analogous to a simple lower pair with the degrees of freedom of 3 degrees of freedom. All the mean they are rotational degrees of freedom, all the 3 degrees. And human hip has, we all know, human hip has a very uh, wide range of activities to perform. Right? After shoulder joint, it is the highest degree of freedom joint, and it is also the joint with maximum stability with mobility. Common causes of failure might be because of some disease such as arthritis, maybe accidental fractures, or there is one disease called avascular necrosis. Avascular necrosis means there is a very small nerve at the femur head, and it supplies the blood to that particular joint for proper functioning. And because of some irregular movements or abrupt forces applied, that nerve can be die. Means that nerve will stop supplying the blood and it can die. So this is another type of uh, issue in biomechanics or the joints. Each type of joints has this avascular necrosis problem. Okay, so this is you can see pelvis bone and femur head in the first image, and let us discuss the anatomy of the hip so that you understand during the methodology is performed. The kinematic structure of hip joint is a ball and socket type joint. The socket is formed by the acetabulum cup, and the ball is simple femoral head. The acetabulum and femur head are the portions of the large pelvis bone. See, pelvis bone is a wing-shaped bone, and the upper end of the femur, uh, uh, when combines with this acetabulum cup, forms the hip joint. The bone surfaces of the femur head and the acetabulum are covered with articular cartilage, and the cartilage, this cartilage is smooth tissue that cushions the ends of the bones and allows them to move easily. Actually, it performs like the lubricant. A thin tissue called synovial membrane surrounds this hip joint, and its function is to produce a small amount of fluid that lubricates the cartilage and allows free movement of the hip joint without any friction. The tissue that connects the femur head inside the acetabulum curve provide stability to the joint. However, this uh, arthroplasty or hip replacement surgery would not ensure synovial membrane and ligaments to exist to retain the exact mobility of a biological system, and this became the most crucial concern of all the surgeons who are doing arthroplasty, hip arthroplasty. Therefore, see this type of the image that is on the right hand side of the PPT of the page. It represents artificial hip implant. It was introduced in 1960s, and this is being used for over the decades in hip replacement surgeries. There is a white cap. This acts as that cartilage system. It acts as the lubricant. Okay, now let us discuss few terminologies that will come again and again. Human body and its movements can be described by three-dimensional coordinate systems formed by three anatomical planes. These three anatomical planes are number one, sagittal plane. Sagittal plane divides the body. It passes through the center of the body and it divides it into left and right portions. Right. The coronal plane, it passes through the center of the body to divide the body in front and back portions. And the transverse plane passes through center of the body to divide the body in upper and lower parts. So means other terminologies related to it are these. The anterior word will represent towards the front in the sagittal plane, the in the frontal plane that is dividing the body into two halves, front and back. So this anterior means towards the front portion, and posterior means away towards the rear or away from the front portion, and this superior means towards or closer to head, inferior means closer to feet. Medial refers to the location closer to the midline of the body, means towards the center of the body, and lateral refers to the location away from the midline. Proximal means whatever point we are discussing of the human body. This proximal means near to the point of observation, and distal, away to the point of observation, means the point. For example, if we are talking about hip joint, then knee will be the distal point, and the femur head will be the proximal point. So this type of uh, 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 terminologies we are going to use in our further discussion. Okay. The present study is focused on the hip joints kinematic constraints and their impact on the bone strength and bone life, performing a successful deep squat, which is a very routine activity among South Asian population. We used to go for toilet seats, our worship positions, and farmers working in the fields. All these for all these work, we have to go for squat postures. after in the literature, a lot of research has been done in this particular field for the joint movements, uh, but this portion, this Asian routine, that going squat, is very less studied by the Western researchers, because they generally do not need to go for a squat. Their eating habits are dining table and chair. Their worships in the churches and means most of the time their worship areas, they used to sit on the benches. And similarly, their toilet position is they do not go for squat posture. Therefore, the Western people does not have focused much on the squat posture. Only few sports arena research work has been done. That is majorly it was the work on muscles only, how to strengthen the muscles of the sports person, because they usually go for a squat in Western countries. So these are the objectives that we are going to discuss. That to reveal the mechanical failure behavior of the CAD model of a human hip joint at different loading conditions, to propose implant material and design intended to fabricate and test the same under different loading conditions. And we also proposed a mathematical model which predicts the design stress of a femur bone, and the same to be used for the further we can utilize this model for fabrication of the implant also. So our methodology part, numerical methodology, we have created a smooth and voidless physical domain, that is a 3D CAD model of the femur. And uh, this 3D CAD model we have developed on SolidWorks software package. The solid domain has been discretized into a finite number of tetrahedron elements on ANSYS 14.0 platform. The discretized model is simulated for different postures of body, which is standing, knee bend, chair posture, and pre-squat posture and deep squat posture. These 5 postures we studied in our numerical methodology. So a solid model of femur has been made and fitted into a Cartesian system. The resultant force is applied at the femur head for all the postures in this study during a successful squat posture. The geometry and static behavior of true postures considered are revealed in the means in later slides. This contact area between the pelvis and femur head is considered as the area through which the load transfers from the upper torso to the lower extremity of human body. Because we know that our femoral head is of irregular shape. It doesn't have any fixed shape. It depends on the growth and routine activities of a person. For example, an athlete will be having a different shape of femoral head. A normal person will be having a different shape of femoral head. It depends on the geographical locations and the routine of the person, right? So because of this irregular shape of the femoral head, as well as the acetabulum cup, the change of contact area is observed while making a squat for each individual subject. And there are no standard analytical procedures uh, uh, or values universally that could determine the effective contact area. And therefore, in our study, we took that approximations under the guidance of some physiotherapists. The distal end of the femur forms a lower pair with the proximal tibia. Distal end of femur forms a lower pair with the proximal tibia. This in the image you can see, this is the distal end of our femur, and the blue colored region will be the contact area on the when it is touching the tibial proximal tibial plateau. There tangential motion that is trained by the medial condyle in medial and lateral condyles in real human body, and the femoral patellar surfaces also is there that sometimes we used to call in layman language, the cup of the knee. That is called as the patellar surface, and this patellar surface and medial lateral condyles usually binds the knee joint and allows the knee joint to perform an oscillating movement. A single degree of freedom is obtained at the rotation of the femur about its longitudinal axis, and it is very minimum movement during a squat posture. When you are going for a proper squat, this rotation of the knee joint is minimal, and we have neglected it in our research. Okay, the physical model has been put into a proper coordinate system to ensure the correct nature of loading, because we are going to move in different quadrants of the observations. The coordinate system is divided into global and local procedures, global and local coordinate system, so that the orientation of the femur could be well defined performing squat. The weight of the body considered in the numerical analysis is 60 kg, and approximately it became 600 newtons. And the total load of this 600 Newton is shared equally by the two limbs, for left and right legs, right? That means 300 Newton is shared by each limb, each leg. In case of walking, a load of 2.5 times that shared among the load of the limbs is observed to be acted upon the femur head. And many researchers has claimed this 2.5 times body weight X during the transfer from upper torso to lower extremity. So it was assumed that the same amount of load occurs in all the postures of human body, and therefore we applied a constant resultant load of 750 Newton for a 60 kg person. We applied this on the contact portion of the femur head and the acetabulum of pelvis for all the observation cases. Magnitude of all the component applied load is presented here in this table. You can see during the standing posture, the 750 will be the axial component, 750 Newton, and lateral component we have neglected. Although there will be a minor change in real human body, and it depends on the person to person. The knee bending at the 45 degree of angle, there will be a component divided to axial and lateral directions. So 530 in the axial direction, minus 530 in the lateral direction, and this way we have distributed the components for all the postures. Okay, so the simulation has been carried out for 5 familiar positions that I told in the previous slide. Resultant load is observed to the vertically downwards. See, in the standing posture, that black colored arrow is showing the weight of the upper torso, weight of the upper body part on one limb, right? And it is directly toward, because of it is directly pointing to the gravity. The direct resultant is acting vertically downwards in the initial standing position. The reaction from the ground joint causes the upper portion of the body to rest on the femur with an equilibrium condition. Otherwise, we will fall. Right? The immediate next position to the standing is knee bending position. The second image where we are dividing the components in the lateral and axial directions. Excessive load on femur could be observed from the standing position till before chair position, and a vertical resultant load causing the femur to experience shear in the chair posture, the third posture of the squat. And consequently, the pre-squat and deep squat positions, or final squat positions, causes the femur to undergo a tensile load, because here the quadrant change is there. So there is a directional change in the loading condition during the pre-squat and deep squat postures. material, this we have discussed. See the material definition that we have input we have given to the ANSYS software. A material is characterized with well-defined physical properties such as density, motility of the bone, and these physical properties ultimately define the mechanical properties of the material. For example, ultimate strength of the bone, shear strength of the bone or the joint, toughness of the pelvis bone and the femur bone, etc. In case of bones, density is the most crucial parameter to strength of the bone, and this density affects the mechanical properties significantly and varies for two types of bones, cortical and cancellous. The Hounsfield unit for the cortical and cancellous bone is 2200 and 800 units. Actually, cortical bones are the bones porosity is very less, and this cortical portion of the bone, this cortical cancellous portions are in the same bone. Cortical portion of the bone usually bears the major portion of the load, and cancellous portion of the bone allows the bone for the movement. That means it gives the flexibility to the joint. Therefore, the contact areas of the bone generally are treated as cancellous areas, shown in the yellow color in the image, you can see, and the shaft, which is the main load bearing portion of the bone, that will be considered as cortical bone, shown in the gray color in this image. And this Hounsfield unit 2200 and 800 for cortical bone and cancellous bone respectively, we have taken from literature, and there is open source material available in HIP 98. In 1998, very diverse research has been conducted for measurements of the bone of human body. So they averaged all these measurements, and we have taken the same Hounsfield unit from the literature, 2200 and 800. Okay, so this model is assumed to be our model. We assumed it as elastic and homogeneous in the study. There is no standard procedure to calculate Young's modulus of a orthotropic material of a live person. See, we can calculate Young's modulus for a dead person, and after the death, bone is decaying. Therefore, we cannot have an exact Young's modulus of a person, and it varies from person to person as well. Therefore, some empirical correlations were developed in that HIP 98 open source material, and these correlations are widely used in the biomechanics studies. And these 5 correlations are there represented in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in this equations, where HU stands for Hounsfield unit. Rho is signifying density. We calculate the density of the bone based on the Hounsfield units, and then we calculate the Young's modulus based on the densities. These empirical formulas were developed in 1998. In general, the bone comprises of these two portions that I told, this cortical and cancellous. The outside portion generally became the cortical, and the joint areas became cancellous. And based on the strength and density, we gave the input to the ANSYS software as per these calculations from the empirical formulas. Next is our the test rig, the experimental setup that we prepared. So this was the schematic diagram of the experimental setup that we fabricated in our workshop of IIT Roorkee. This experimental setup was developed as a developed to study the this for the continuation of this present study. This to conduct the experiments on the femur bone and the pelvis bone that was procured from an authentic supplier. The experimental setup was built to use the constraints of human hip joint. Physical configuration of test sections after fixing on the experimental setup resembles a human hip joint that allows 1 degree of freedom for rotation at the hip joint, and 1 degree of freedom for vertical motion. While going the squat posture, our hip might be going downwards and it might be coming upwards. So these 2 degrees of freedoms were given in the experimental setup. The experimental setup was developed on a rigid base. In the diagram, in the schematic, you can see to avoid the small vibrations while performing the experiments. A better view will, this is the real experimental setup that we manufactured, that we fabricated in the lab. The structure of pelvis and its holder together was developed by a systematic process applied to different elements, which is nuts, bolts, steel plate, pelvis bone screw. A thick plate steel was screwed to the pelvis bone at the sciatic buttress. That wing part is called as sciatic buttress, and a thick plate, steel plate, was screwed there at one end, and the other end of that plate was in the superior pubic ramus. The superior pubic ramus is just above the anus portion of the body. The bone portion of this ramus is just above the anus of the human body. Therefore, the steel plate becomes an integral part of the pelvis bone during the experimentation, and this is to make the pelvis bone to be able to transfer the load on the femur head. An internally threaded nut was welded to a plate attached to this pelvis bone, and thus it makes a bolted joint mounted on the fixed vertical frame. The fixed vertical frame is shown in the gray color of the color portion is the fixed elements, fixed part of this setup, and guideway mechanism is there, which allows the vertical movement of this fixed entity. This in the second image, right hand side, the lower image, you can see that a steel plate is being screwed with the sciatic buttress and the pubic ramus. Vertical guideway allows the pelvis bone to move up and down freely. A C-clamp was fixed to a rigid vertical frame. It will be a very wide, if I will explain each and every part of the construction. The interested people can contact me anytime, and we can discuss the experimental setup working. Right? So next, this will be our test section. The test section that we utilized for experimentation purpose. The dry bone was procured from an authentic supplier that used to supply the skeleton to MBBS students, and AIIMS Rishikesh has helped us a lot in procuring all these human body parts. This set includes disarticulated left side original pelvis and femur bones. They are left side pelvis and femur bone of a person. Both the bones are dry, healthy, and free from contamination. The set of pelvis and femur bone, as shown in this figure, belongs to a healthy male subject of age about 51 to 55 years, and it was claimed by the supplier that the subject was of athletic routine, and a very high amount of physical labor he used to do when he was alive. So we utilized for our experimentation purpose, and we mounted these pelvis and femur bone on the experimental setup. Application of loads and observation of stresses developed in the various portions of these two bones. These were the dimensions of the bones that we used. The femoral head lateral medial diameter has a maximum of 45.3 mm, and the neck of the bone was a subcapital mid cervical and basilar diameter of this 41.23 mm, 31.43 mm, and 55.5 mm respectively. The length of the subtrochanteric apical axis is 93.4 mm with an inclination 127.8 degrees. This is the standard angle of inclination in most of the human subjects. Any angle which is lesser than 120 above than 135 is considered as disease. Velar and Vegas type of diseases are there if this angle is not between 120 to 135. Femoral shaft lengths include metaphysis and diaphysis regions, has a magnitude of 24 mm with a total of length of 482 mm, which includes proximal and distal epiphysis region. The average femoral diameters at proximal metaphysis region is 27.3 mm, and the mediolateral and anterior posterior femoral diameter at distal metaphysis region are 40.55 mm and 32.4 mm. And the least cross-sectional diameter was measured as 25.4 mm. And the acetabular cup of the pelvis bone is assumed hemisphere and has a diameter of 48.3 mm. And femoral shaft, because it has a varying diameter throughout its length, we averaged the diameter of the femoral shaft as 33.05 mm. Four set of strain gauges were equipped in the used in the present study. Out of those four, three of them were mounted on femur bone, while one was mounted at the pelvis bone, because the pelvis bone does not is a very unsymmetrical bone and it does not provide much area just above the acetabulum cup to observe. So we just measured the acetabulum cup reactions, right? Set of strain gauges mounted on the pelvis was used to measure the bending stress on pelvis due to reaction forces generated by femur head at the hip joint during a particular posture. The strain gauge mounted at metaphysis, that is near the trochanters, metaphysis portion near the trochanters, lesser and greater trochanters, measure the torsional effect of the femur while making the squat. While the set of strain gauge diaphysis shaft, minimum cross-sectional area, and the region of the distal femur measures the bending stresses. So we are torsional stresses and bending stresses both are being measured by these four sets of strain. The experimental setup was used to perform the experiments to evaluate the strength of the femur and pelvis bone through the strain outcomes. The experiments conducted on the dry bone were under different physical configurations with different body weights. And the procedure we used, preliminary experiments were conducted to verify the feasibility of the test rig and test section under the range load to be applied for experiments. Then the range of operating parameters were decided under which the dry bone has to be tested, and the knee flexion has been changed from 0 to 155 degree in steps of 45 degree, 90, 135 degree, and 155 degree. The first posture was standing, and the body weight distributes over the hip joint, and the movable frame, the white colored portion as that was shown experimental setup, real experimental setup. That white color portion was the movable portion of the experimental setup, and this movable frame was adjusted in such a way that it was close to the fixed frame, so that there will be a 0-degree angle between the femoral head and the lateral medial condyles at the distal femur. The first posture was standing, and weight distributes over the joint, two hip joints, left and right. The movable frame stay closed to the fixed frame. The proximal femur at trochanters were clamped such that the femur head and the acetabulum cup stabilizes themselves to allow the body weight on the hip joint. A dead weight having a load of 20 kg, that is equivalent to 60 kg body mass, hung just near the hip joint. The load replicates the half of the body weight of a 60 kg human on his right side hip joint. Thus, the hip joint bears the body weight through the contact between the two bones. Actually, what happens in the human body, out of total weight of human body, two-third weight is considered for upper torso, and one-third weight is for lower extremities, that is two legs. So two-third weight of 60 kg body mass is 40 kg. 40 kg upper torso weight is distributed to both the limbs, left and right limbs. Therefore, each limb is bearing 20 kg load. The posture was left for 10 seconds to stabilize the readings obtained by the data logger, the equipment that we used for obtaining the strain values through the test strain sensors. The experiment was repeated thrice for having an average value of the strain generated at marked positions of the test sections. And every new loading of the setup was done once the reading in the data logger reaches to 0. That is, we also stabilize the measuring equipment. For evaluating strain values during second posture of the squat, the movable frame was adjusted such that the longitudinal axis of the femur makes an angle of 45 degrees with the axis perpendicular to the normal to ground in the sagittal plane. And this way, we replicate the knee bend posture of a human in our experimental setup by adjusting the white colored movable frame on the gray colored fixed frame. The posture ensures the contact area between the femur head and the acetabulum cup for the particular posture, maybe standing, knee bend, or chair posture, pre-squat. Hello, is there some doubt? Okay, the standing posture was then loaded with another set of dead weights. The load of 45 kg was applied to evaluate the change in strain readings and the data recorded when the reading in the data logger is stabilized. In this way, we keep on changing the loads and we keep on changing the postures of the body, all the 5 postures, and we evaluated for other 3 postures as in the similar way. The movable frame was adjusted to its maximum possible location with the mounted test section being a replica of the chair posture, that is 90 degree from the vertical axis of the sagittal plane. And for pre-squat and deep squat postures, the movable frame was adjusted in such a way that the test section remains in 135 degree angle and 155 degree angle from vertical axis of the sagittal plane. So we calculated, we measured the strains developed in the femoral bone and the pelvis bone during the 5 body postures. Now, next is our development of mathematical model. Present study the human bones kinematic links through which the load is being transferred, and the direction of the load is defined by kinematic structure of the linkages at different positions. The lower extremity of the body is analogous to a 4-bar mechanism. In the present study, the 4 links are tarsus. Tarsus, the foot bone. Tarsus is the foot bone, and we considered the tarsus as the fixed link. Other 3 links were tibia, femur, and pelvis. These 4 links undergo different positions while performing a successful deep squat, as we have seen in experimental setup as well. The tarsus through ankle joint is assumed to be fixed. The tibia experiences an oscillatory motion for multiple successful deep squats. This tibia observes oscillating motion for multiple knee bend, chair posture, and pre-squat and deep squat postures, while the femur and pelvis experiences the rectilinear and curvilinear motions respectively. The motion of the pelvis is assumed to be curved path. Shows the physical dimension and the angular position of a tibia and femur. The pelvis follows the path traced by point P, x1, y1 for standing posture, x2, y2 for knee bend, x3, y3 for chair, and so on. And the path of the point P, x1, y1 is obtained by applying physical laws to individual links, four-bar mechanism. The distal end of the tibia is hinged. Distal end of tibia is shown by the joint of tibia and tarsus is the distal end. The origin O is the distal end of the tibia, is hinged with the tarsus, and therefore the tibia can only oscillate about ankle joint. Only 1 degree of freedom is there to this link, tibia link. It can oscillate with respect to tarsus bone or ankle joint. Thus, the tibiofemoral joint K, represented by tibiofemoral joint, tibia joint of tibia and femur, represented by K, oscillates about the talocrural joint. This tibia tarsus joint is called as talocrural joint or ankle joint, and it oscillates about talocrural joint. And here you can see the tibiofemoral joint is a modified hinge joint to permit the flexion and extension as well as slight internal and external rotation. In our study, a negligible internal and external rotations of tibiofemoral joint is assumed to avoid the complexity of the kinematic analysis, because measuring these rotations for a live human is really a very tough job, and only gate labs, GAIT labs, dedicated gate labs are there, which measures these, which approximate these movements. So we just have neglected them, and mathematically this movement, this theta 1t is equals to theta naught sine omega t, because this movement is a simple harmonic motion, right? Simple harmonic motion movement. And the angular velocity, associated angular velocity will be theta naught omega cos theta 1t. And the modified hinge type tibiofemoral joint causes the femur bone to exhibit a transrotational motion. However, the flexion and extension limited by the ligaments surrounded to the knee, and the angular positions of femur, that is theta 2, is inhibited by the angular frequency of the tibia while performing a successful deep squat. And mathematically, this movement theta 2t, a simple geometry is there, simple geometry, parallel lines, and by using this geometry, we can find that theta 2t is equals to k minus 1 times theta 1t, where k represents the ratio of maximum theta phi max, maximum angle made by the femur bone from the tibial axis with respect to the theta 1. That is the angle, maximum angle made by the tibial axis with the vertical axis of the sagittal plane. So this ratio is represented by a constant k, and the theta 2t will be k minus 1 times theta 1t, and the associated angular velocity of femur will be k minus 1 times omega 1t. Okay, the location of the pelvis is defined by the angular positions of the tibia and femur, and their physical lengths L and R. L is the physical length of a femur, and R is the length of the tibia we have considered for our mathematical model. The random locations of the pelvis is given by the point x2, y2 somewhere in the diagram in the space, where x2, a very simple geometry, just use the Pythagoras theorem. X2 comes L sine theta 2t plus R sine theta 1t, and y2 will be L cos theta 2t plus R cos theta 1t. As the tibia is always allowed to oscillate, the motion is considered to be simple harmonic motion, and the motion of tibiofemoral joint is purely depending on the metabolism of an individual, a constrained simple harmonic motion is assumed for the simplicity of the kinematic analysis. Thus, the angular displacement of the TBI at any instant will be given by theta 1t equals to theta naught sine omega t, and we developed those mathematical equations that we have seen in our previous slides. Theta naught is the maximum amplitude of the tibia, which is 20 degree as reported by HIP 98 open source material. 20 degrees is the maximum amplitude that your tibia can go while making a deep squat. Angular velocity omega represents the angular frequency of the sit-up, and T represents the time instant for performing the sit-ups. We asked the human subjects to go for some sit-ups, and we calculated these sit-ups. Then we measured these L and R of the human subjects, and based on those measurements, we have developed this particular mathematical model. Let the knee flexion is directly proportional to the angular displacement of the tibia, and therefore the phi will be C times theta 1t, where C is defined by the maximum possible knee flexion and tibia dorsiflexion. And in this study, this phi we have taken as 155 degree. 155 degree represents the successful or the proper deep squat that the Asian population generally used to make while doing their routine activities. This is also we have taken from the literature. Most of the people who studied the sports person, they took phi as means this deep squat angle as 155 degrees. Theta 1t max is 20 degree, and theta 1t plus theta 2t will be the sum of theta 1t and theta 2 will be equal to phi. Right? By geometry, we can understand this. The acceleration of pelvis along x and y directions are given by this acceleration px is the double differentiation of this distance x on the x-axis, and it comes minus omega 2 square t minus omega 2t square L sin theta 2t minus omega 1t square r sin theta 1t, and APY, that is acceleration in the y direction, y-axis will be as written in this slide. And the force, we all know force is ma, Newton's law, and acceleration we have calculated these APX and APY, and force we have calculated. This is the force that we are applying on the femur head by our body weight while making a particular squat posture. When the person is going in the squat posture, this force will be applied on their femoral head. It depends on the independent parameters are individual length of the femur of the human subject, length of the tibia of the human subject, and the angles theta 1t and theta 2 made by that human subject. These four independent parameters we have utilized to calculate different accelerations for different human subjects, and we can calculate the force they are applying for making a deep squat. These all observations we have done under proper guidance of physiotherapists. I have acknowledged them in a proper way. Dr. Joseph Powell is a physiotherapist in IIT Roorkee Hospital, and Mrs. Taru Saxena and Pranay Saxena are the physiotherapists in Delhi. So they helped me a lot for having all these four datas, L, R, theta 1t and theta 2t, for calculating the force for our for testing our mathematical model. The dynamic analysis was done on the kinematic model to obtain the joint reaction forces. We have the force that was applied on the femoral head that we calculated. Now we calculated the reaction force. Reaction force that the femoral head is applying on the pelvis bone. Forces femur bone towards the hip joint is obtained by this formula. Actually, what we did, the force acting on a joint due to acceleration of upper extremity body, that is upper torso mass, is given by the product of mass into acceleration of mass, and this mass, there would be a reaction force from the femur bone due to the load causing the motion. The resultant force acting on the femur head is given by the magnitude will be same, F equals to m under root APAX square plus APY square. But there will be two things. While sitting down, the reaction force along the femur bone is given by addition of weight to the force due to acceleration of upper extremity body that we calculated. F equals to this m under root APX square APY square plus when we are going down, we add the force due to gravity, that is mg cos pi by 2 minus theta 2. Whenever we are calculating any force when going towards the gravity and against the gravity, we use this formula. We all know. And the femur bone is given by the subtraction. Reaction force along the femur bone is given by the subtraction of the weight to the force to accelerate the upper extremity body against the earth gravity, and therefore the reaction force while standing up is mg cos pi by 2 minus theta 2. The evaluation of stress in three main portions, which is femur head, neck, and shank of the femur bone. The direct normal stress is considered in neck and shank of femur bone. The direct compression or crushing stress were considered in the femur head, and the direct compressive stresses between the femur head and the acetabulum cup were obtained by taking an analogy of the stress between the solid sphere inside the hollow sphere. We all know it better by the name of Hertzian theory, right? And we calculate the stress for neck and shaft by this formula. It is the simple Hertzian theory. In any design book, we can have this formula for solid sphere inside a hollow sphere. And we calculated the sigma c of the femur head by F upon pressure upon a surface area of contact. The A contact. Yes, Q and it catches the C crushing stress. Here F is the force of the reaction force by femur. Mu is Poisson's ratio. E is Young's modulus. T is diameter. And 1 represents the femur head, 2 represents the acetabulum cup. The subscript 1 represents femur head, and subscript 2 represents the diameter of acetabulum cup, or any quantity related to acetabulum. For the range of operating parameters that we have considered for the purpose of kinematic studies of the hip joint, we already have discussed these things in our discussion earlier. The operating parameters are angle flexion extension theta 2 will be having a range of 0 to 20 degrees, knee flexion and extension 0 to 155 degree, time period to make one successful squat, going down and standing up. Going down and standing up. One such cycle, it takes 0.508 to 1.008 seconds. For it depends on person to person. Different. We observed this data for 180 number of human subjects, and this was a time period for one successful squat. Length of the femur that was considered in our study for the 180 human subjects was 370 to 540 mm. Because in our study, most of are somewhat shorter. Okay. So, I think. Can someone hear?
Yeah, it is audible. Can you hear me, Ankit? No, but your screen is not visible.
Yeah.
Screen is not visible.
Okay, sir, I'm
Audio,
trying.
audio is okay. Audio is okay. Screen. You can take 10 minutes to complete because we have the question answer session also, Ankit.
Okay, sir. I will finish.
Okay.
Now, can you see us, see, sir?
Not yet. Yeah, now it is coming.
Okay, sir. Okay. So let us come to discussion. I will just finish them fast. The numerical simulation has been carried out to distribution and the deformation along the femur bone. The simulation of a femur bone is analogous to study of a cantilever beam and free. The maximum stresses and minimum bone, that is the end of the femur bone. The deviatoric stress component, this deviatoric stress component has been evaluated for each posture of successful squat. The figure on the right hand side of the image shows distribution of deviatoric stress of the femur for different knee flexions. An increase of stress in the femur has been knee flexion angle. How maximum stress is observed when the knee flexion angle is 126 degrees. 126 degrees represents something near to pre-squat posture. Pre-squat posture. This could be due to the gradual increase of the force in lateral flexion at femur head. The shifting of patella from the femur the lateral proximal tends to rotate it at and stretch the inner portion of the bone for a while. It's squat until it reaches the knee flexion region for deep squat posture. The maximum at the sup and for analysis of femur with specified body means these are shown in this circular graph, right? The maximum deformation is
The Ankit, your voice is breaking. You start speaking, then I will tell. You can continue. Continue. There is lot of network problem, it seems. It's still not coming. Properly, it is not coming. Ankit, you are not audible. I think he has lost the connection. We'll wait for 2 more minutes.
Can you hear me, sir? Now is it audible?
Yeah, now it is audible. Audible. Yes, yes.
Okay, okay, okay. Okay.
You
So
have
the
to give 10
maximum
minutes for
deformation.
you have to give 10 minutes for discussion also. Still you are in 39th slide.
Okay, okay.
You can make it fast actually. Introduction, people might be knowing that.
Right, right, sir, right, sir. Okay, so in addition to the above, the kinematic load significantly affects the deformation. This kinematic load is due to the inertia of the body against gravitational effect, causes the femur to rotate with a finite velocity. And a minimum of negligible kinematic load would be observed at standing and deep squat postures. The femur head experiences minimum deformation because of this little kinematic effect for standing and deep squat postures. These are the few results. See, the axial lateral component of the applied load acting at the anterior posterior direction results the femur to rotate towards the deep squat posture. And we observed an increase of femoral head deformation till pre-squat posture. And this deformation is gradually decreased after the pre-squat posture. It may be because of lateral forces came into picture to be less as compared to axial load in deep squat postures. Now, for the knee bend, I'll just give the results. The highest deformation in femur bone was 4% for out of those 180 people. And this maximum stress was observed at the patellar surface close to the lateral epicondyle in the anterior view. While having the chair posture, a raise of 9% was observed for 55 to 60 kg to a range of weight from 55 to 60 kg to 61 to 65 kgs. And the maximum stress was observed at the patellar surface close to medial epicondyle. For pre-squat posture, a change raise of 8% in the deformation was observed. And the location was towards the lateral condyle here. Earlier it was medial condyle. Now during the pre-squat and deep squat posture, it shifted to lateral condyles. The maximum stress is shifted to the lateral condyles. And when the range for deep squat posture, it is 9%. And again, the observed maximum value will be at the posterior portion of the distal femur, that is at the towards the knee, near to the knee. This here in the deep squat posture, the location shifts from anterior to posterior. During the deep squat posture, we have the maximum deformation in the posterior part of the distal femur. Then experimental results. During the experimental investigation, I will directly come to the results section. These four strain gauges we used at these four places just above the convexity of the pelvis, metaphysis femur shaft, diaphysis femur shaft, and distal femur. And this specification is given for the strain gauge. And this type of stress distribution we observe for our experimental results. The stress values in an ascending order in context to the location of the strain gauge for standing posture is distal femur, then diaphysis femur shaft, that is minimum cross-sectional area, then metaphysis femur shaft, that is near to the greater and lesser trochanters and just above the convexity of the pelvis bone. The stress values in an ascending order in context to the location of the strain gauge 2 near to knee bend posture is metaphysis femur. This type of ascending order we observed for all the 4 strain gauges for 5 postures. Maximum reading we are getting for strain gauge 1 in standing, knee bend, chair posture, pre-squat posture and deep squat postures. And for standing posture, strain gauge 4 is giving the minimum value, while for other 4 in other 4 postures, strain gauge 3, that is the cortical portion, that is the shaft portion of the femur, was having the minimum value for the stresses generated while making these 5 postures during the observation, during the experiments. Now, effect of body mass, how body mass is affecting our results. The variation of stress with respect to body mass is noted to be independent. The higher body mass results high stresses. It is to be noted that the body mass ranges, when body mass is shifting from 55 to 60 kg to 61 to 65 kg band, the stress induced at the convexity of the pelvis bone is increased by 4 to 13%. Similarly, when the body mass is ranged from 61 to 65 to 66 to 70 kg band, this changes 4 to 9%, and subsequently a change in 4 to 7% is observed for change in 71 to 75 kg of the body mass. And the compressive and tensile nature of stress distribution remains same for all the body masses. The data how we have collected, the proposed mathematical model was simulated to evaluate magnitude of force along the femur bone, and the time period for one duty cycle was collected from 180 human subjects with different body weights. In the present study, a person is standing with 0° angle to sagittal plane and deep squat with 155° to the sagittal plane through knee flexion and come back to the standing posture. This counts as the one duty cycle. The femur bone is divided into 3 portions to avoid the complexity, and femur head, neck and shank we have calculated with the help of X-rays and CT scans of the human subjects. So this is the data that we have collected for different human subjects, and just for maintaining their privacy, their real data and name has not been listed. This type of table we have made. And these were the results. The time period of one duty cycle depends on several factors related to subjects. For example, their routine activities, their physicalities, their geographical locations, their eating habits, etc. So to consider all these factors such as gender, stamina, fitness, we have collected the data from different sections of the society. We have collected data from athletes, from normal human workers, from girls of different ages, boys of different ages, etc. It is assumed that the tibial movement resembles simple harmonic motion, and this we have proven with the help of the data that we collected from people. This is the stress distribution on femur head. The outcomes of an analytical model of the femur bone are separately plotted, and a common observation was a magnitude of stress relatively high in pre-squat posture while performing a successful deep squat as well as a standing activity. So while fabricating a artificial implant, we have to focus the stresses that are developed at the pre-squat postures. It is evident that the stresses in the femur head are insignificant as compared to the shank and neck portions of the femur bone, because femur is flexible. Femur head is flexible while the shank and neck portions are rigid. The nature is that the pre-squat postures exhibit more stresses under both flexion and extension of the knee under the deep squat activities. The neck portion experiences very high stresses as compared to femur and shaft. This diagram is showing the distribution of the stress for 5 postures. This is the femur shaft stress distribution for the femur shaft, the cortical bone portion. And here also we observe the highest values for somewhere between chair posture and the pre-squat postures. So I hope the conclusions are nothing but we have whatever we have discussed during these results. If someone has some questions, please ask. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ankit. We'll start with the queries. Let me just 1 second. Some people, Ankit, you can check the chat box. Actually, there are few queries people have raised.
Okay.
So someone is not, I don't know whether a student or not. Yeah. So he's asking whether the model has been drawn using CAD model or a 3D scan data is being taken.
It is a 3D CAD model we have developed from SolidWorks package, and we used that new module of it. Directly we developed this CAD model.
Okay. And the next question.
Also, most of the researchers used to develop the CAD model with the help of Mimix images. Mimix software we can use for developing the CAD model.
Right. And Dr. Paramasimov is asking that is there any contribution of muscular forces on the femur bone? What will be the contribution of muscular forces in the femur bone?
Definitely. These femur muscular forces acts significantly, and their impact for moving these femur bones varies from person to person. But in our present study, we did not consider those muscular forces. Individual muscular forces, we just averaged the forces, and that forces we calculate. See, when we are applying load on the femur head while making a squat, muscles are actually pulling and pushing the hip joint and knee joint for flexion and extension cases, and that force we have averaged and utilized in our study, in the present study. Although the muscular forces plays a vital role, even the ligaments also plays a very crucial role in the movements, in the joint movements.
Okay. I think the concerned query has been cleared. So is there any physical analogy of all the bones which is present in the human body is being considered? One participant is asking.
Pardon, sir, I didn't get it.
Is the physical analogy of all the bones present in the human body is considered?
No, not in this study. You see, we just calculated the stresses that were developed in the hip joint. What we did, when the load that has been transferred from the upper body weight and that is being transferred to the joints with the help of muscles, and that particular analogy for hip joint only we have considered in the 4-bar mechanism 4-bar mechanism concept. Other bones we did not have considered, and they usually do not participate in movements. If the people who are making, the sports persons who are making squat postures, they are not allowed to move their shoulder or the upper torso for a proper squat. When the people who are going for a proper squat, other body movements are not allowed. Right. And while in routine activities, it depends on person to person. Generally, we utilize our bones, and definitely when you are taking the support from other body parts, it may affect your movements. But for study purposes, we did not consider other body parts.
Okay. But is there any, like what one of the candidates is asking is that whether the forces and stresses which we got from the mathematical model, can they be correlated with the tribological and lubrication studies?
but in the present study, lubrication studies, we cannot use these models. What happens for semi-arthroplasty, where we are just changing one part or one portion of the joint, there we need to have a separate study for lubrication studies. But for full hip arthroplasty, there we need not to take care about. In the initial slides, I have shown you that we cut the pelvis portion of the acetabulum area and the femur portion, and we insert the artificial femur bone as well as the artificial acetabulum cup with a artificial lubricant PMMA rubber. We use a PMMA rubber between these two bones, artificial bones, and the development of those artificial implant depends only for this is applicable only for total hip arthroplasty. For semi-hip arthroplasty, we have to go for calculation of the lubrication studies and the tribological studies when we are changing only one portion or one part of the joint.
Okay, Dr. Selvam Kumar is asking that how this validation of results is important actually.
Sir, they are very, very important actually. Repeatedly, I told that the squat postures, the routine activities totally varies for subject to subject. Each and every person has different way of standing, knee bending, chair postures, squatting. Everyone has a different way of movement. So whatever we are going to develop, for whatever subject we are going to develop the artificial implant, we have to take their individual data. For example, if we want to develop artificial implant for a athlete person who is in the age of 35 to 40, we have to measure their limbs length, that is femur and tibial bones length, and we have to measure their movements, their routine activities. He has to be put under observation for a longer period. Based on that data, when we will put those data in our mathematical model, we can develop artificial implant for that particular subject. But those 4 parameters, L, R, theta 1t and theta 2t, theta 1 and theta 2, they have to be measured for individual subject and after a deep study of that particular subject. Routine activities or study of routine activities of that subject.
Okay. Dr. Paramasima is asking that when you are done with the mathematical model and the objective function, so what are the constraints, or you have done only the kinematic analysis of the mathematical equations based on the free body diagram? Sir, you can switch on the video.
Yes, sir. Yes. Sir.
Yeah, you can. You're visible. Now, what he is asking is that when you have considered the mathematical model, what are the constraints you have considered, or based on the free body diagram from the the mathematical model, you have used the constraints. That's what he's asking. No, what he's saying is that when you are trying to develop the mathematical model, so what are the constraints you have used? Or it's only by the kinematic analysis mathematical equations are developed.
The collect data.
Okay, you can switch off the video. I think there is some network issue. You switch off the video. In that case, there is some connectivity. The bandwidth can be more in that case if you switch off the video.
Hello.
Yes, you're audible. You're audible. Yeah, you're audible.
I switched, sir. I switched off.
Now you can tell.
Can you hear me, sir? How can you hear?
Yeah, we
Sir,
can hear you.
we just did the dynamic analysis of we just had that on the friend subject. I think my voice is going late, sir.
Clear, no issue.
Param Shivam, sir, I just did the kinematic analysis.
Mhm. No, I have one more question. Suppose whatever
Yes,
you
sir.
have
Yes.
data, so this data is based on the collection which you have done from the patients, or you got from somewhere else, or is there any ready-made data available on the open platform?
No, sir.
Like
We collected
you
it. We collected from different human subjects and from all sections. The data that we collected were from patients from the AIMS Rishikesh. Those came for, as well as we have collected the data. We have the of Bengal Engineer Suppliers, Indian Army unit in the Roorkee. So those people, those army people also gave their particular data. They did some sit-ups under the observation of Dr. Joseph Powell of IIT Roorkee. He is a physiotherapist, and as well as we have gathered the data from the PhD and BTech MTech students, individual students who has a normal routine life, those who do not go for any athletic activities. So we have gathered data from different sections of the society. It involves the patient's data as well.
okay. But in which posture you will be having more stress in that case?
Pre-squat, sir. Pre-squat posture near to 120 to 130 degrees. We are having maximum stresses, and the area of stresses were near to the center of the shaft, and therefore, sir,
Okay.
generally means in layman language, layman people have observed that generally the fracture, the bone breaks near to the knee joint or somewhat near to the midsection of the accidental fractures occurs at that point because maximum stresses are developing at that area during pre-squat posture. And second is this chair posture. Third one comes the deep squat posture, then knee bend and standing. So most crucial posture is pre-squat, and second most crucial is chair posture.
Okay,
Therefore, sir,
thank you.
generally doctors and surgeons suggest that the means that angle of hip joint to knee joint should be like that. That hip joint should be a little upwards than the knee joint.
Okay.
They do not allow patient to go for chair posture.
Okay. Fine. Okay. Any other doubts?
Hello, 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 hello. Can you hear, sir? I cannot hear, sir. Hello.
Hello, am I audible, everyone?
Yes, sir. Now I can hear,
Hello.
sir. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Ankit. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
And
sir.
all the
Thank you.
participants, and the other participants, we will be meeting at 11:25. Okay. Thank you. We'll discuss later, Ankit. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.